Hello, my people. Hola. Thank you for coming back and welcome to Juntos with Eduardo.
And Eva.
Today, we're going to be touching on an incredible topic that we thought about and that could help a lot of people out there. Rather than a question, is more so a statement that we came up with. It just wanted to talk about this. And the statement is most couples argue to win, conscious couples argue to understand. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily mean that for you, right? It's not like we're arguing to understand. Like we're not doing that on purpose, right? But you give a purpose to everything that you do in life. Anytime I got into an argument with my friends or when I got into an argument with my parents or even at work, I think the nature behind an argument is us defending our side and trying to win and trying to show the other side why they are wrong, right? So when you're in a conscious relationship, you still kind of do that, but you have to slow down either during the argument or after the argument to understand why it happened and how this is an opportunity for you to grow, sometimes even a reflection. And we do this all the time.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned about emotion regulation is that, especially in a moment of conflict with someone else, if both of you are activated, it's really hard for you to de escalate the conflict because you need at least one person to be in a regulated, calm state to be able to think clearly and navigate the situation so that it's not just like continuously throwing more flames and fuel into the fire. And I feel like we both have been able to do that with each
Yeah.
other. I remember one specific time where we were out on a walk with the dogs and we got into some argument. We were both very heated, and you were walking in front of me. And I had this moment where my higher self just started to speak to me, and it started asking me, like, why is he so activated right now? And what came up for me was something that you had recently shared about why you get triggered by those certain situations. And so then I almost felt like I had this deeper understanding of you and what was actually underneath the conflict. It wasn't most of the time. Here's the other thing I've learned. It's not even about what you guys are arguing about, but there's like layers underneath and there's something else going on, whether the person feels like they're never enough or that they always
Yes.
get beat on or yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's the essence of this statement, right? The most couples argue to win versus a conscious relationship like ours. We argue and we find a win in it, and to understand and what's going on. Plenty of arguments we had in the past have been because we feel um, it's coming from wounds from the past, from when we grew up, right? For example, when you asked me to do something, and let's use an example of something that has actually happened. So, Eva has asked me multiple times in the past to clean up, right? I'm not very good at cleaning up, and she has asked me to clean up, whether it is the kitchen or go in the bathroom and clean up the bathroom, just regular cleanup, right? I go and do that cleanup. I take my time. In my eyes, I'm taking my time. In my eyes, I'm being thorough. And then Eva comes in and tells me I didn't do a good job. And I can tell that Eva is not trying to hurt me or trying to come after me. She's just saying, "Oh, you missed this spot over here. You missed the spot over there," because she's better at details. And to most people, that might be such a small thing, but because I grew up not feeling enough, and anytime I did something, it wasn't good enough, and most of the times I was told that I wasn't enough and that I wasn't gonna do anything with my life. I was never gonna amount to something. Such a small thing makes me so triggered, and I'll say things such as, Well, if you want to clean it your way, why are you asking me to clean it anyway? Or even like sometimes I'll get so triggered that I'll just walk out of that situation and go to the next room, right? To the bedroom to not have to deal with it and argue with her. And that is because I don't feel safe when you're telling me that I didn't do a good job. When you're asking me to go get you something from the kitchen and I go get it and you tell me, "Oh, but you forgot this." Like for example, if she's asking me to go get her a bagel and get the cream cheese, and then I bring a spoon with the cream cheese, she'll tell me why she prefers a knife to put the the cream on it because it's more proper and it's easier. But to me, it doesn't matter. And as soon as she say that, I get super mad because she's telling me that I didn't do a good enough job, even though she's not doing that on purpose. That's what I'm gathering. That's what I'm feeling, right? And then the issue can get worse or just stay the same if we never talked about it. And that's what we mean by trying to understand the argument, because there's been plenty of times where in the moment I slow down, I'm not triggered enough, so I slow down and I tell her, "I'm sorry, but I'm getting triggered and this is why I'm getting triggered." Or if I feel very triggered, I go to the bedroom and then come out after it. But when I'm in the bedroom, I try to look for the things that trigger me and why they trigger me. So it's very important you have self awareness to know what happened. And sometimes it is good for your partner to ask you questions. He was very good at asking me questions. So if I go in the bedroom and I come down and I come out, she starts asking me questions. So what happened? Why did you get triggered? Why did you feel like it was a big deal? And then we get to the bottom of it and then we try to then fix it. And now with that being said, you can't always try to fix things or fix your trauma, because then otherwise you would be always trying to fix yourself or her, right? It's a never ending game. That being said, though, it does help a lot to understand what's going on so that you have more empathy for that other person and you try not to do it again. You're going to do it again, but you try to do it less. And even when you do it again, then you see your partner getting triggered by that. And then you understand why your partner is getting triggered and why it is a big deal to them, even though it's not a big deal to you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned that has supported in navigating conflict with you is to get curious around what you're actually feeling, especially if like I notice that you're getting activated and I feel like what I said or did wasn't really like your activation seems confusing to me, like why you got
Mm,
so activated over something. And so then usually that's like a signal for me of, oh, okay, so there's something else going on here that he's feeling really deeply. And then I feel like you do the same for me too. When I'm like, usually I feel like I feel more upset and sad.
hmm.
And then you go into more like anger, aggression.
Yes.
Um, but I think too, like the framework of internal family systems and parts work, if you don't know about that, you can look that up by Dr. Richard Schwartz. That whole concept of understanding that we have these parts within us that are stepping into different roles and protecting us, I have firsthand experienced those protector parts coming up, like feeling the anger and feeling the sadness and like the parts speaking through me. And I feel like when you know that it's just a part of you that feels that way and it's not you, you also then understand that when your partner is speaking in that way, that's just a part of them that feels hurt, but that's not who they are as a person. And then you can kind of soften and it is like about basically like inner child healing, like connecting to that part of them that feels hurt and asking what's going on, what do you need, how can I support you. And really I think at the end of the day too, ultimately every single human just wants to feel seen and heard and
Yeah.
safe and loved. So
Hmm.
I think when we cultivate that for each other, and it's like I said, it's easier to do this when one of you is in a, like a calm, regulated state. If both of you are activated, I found that usually when we have argument and it's and we are like just going at it back and forth, that's because we're like hitting at each other's
Yeah.
wounds. And so then we keep poking and activating and triggering the
Yeah.
other one further. And but then the moment one of us is like, okay, like let me like
Mhm.
actually listen to you to understand what's going on,
Yeah.
that like snaps out that
Mhm.
whole cycle.
And I think it's important to talk also about mentality, right? Like I have a mentality of going after what I want and almost like a mentality of not giving up ever. And I think it fits into here because I feel like if you're trigger and I'm trigger and we both have the mentality in the moment of like I'm not backing down, I'm not giving up in a way, then we just continue. And I think you have to, when you're in a relationship like this, you have to bring the attitude of starting to slow down and thinking, okay, it's fine. We're not getting anywhere. And be okay with that. We're not getting anywhere right now because we're both triggered. Let's go our separate ways for a few minutes, or I take the boys out on a walk and then you stay in the apartment and then we come back together. Understanding that you have to sometimes go your separate ways for a little bit to calm down, you know?
Yeah, I think this brings up conflict resolution styles, and I think that it's a conversation that's worth having, whether this is your romantic partner or a friendship or a family member. But I'm a big fan of having these conversations because if you know what that person needs and what their default is it fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? What's their nervous system response to conflict? Then you can navigate those interactions a lot better. Because if, like, for instance, my response is I need space if I'm feeling really activated. I need time to calm down, to settle down, to process what's going on. Growing up, my mom did not respect this.
Mhm.
And she would, like, because her conflict resolution style is she wants to talk about it right away.
Like me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so, but I think that when you know what your partner needs, if you're like, then you can communicate. Like, for instance, there's been times where we have both said to each other, like, hey, I need to go calm down first and I'll come back and we'll talk about it. But I think our devotion to come back and always address it and talk about it and understand like what happened, it helps us grow and it helps us actually understand where we're coming from. So that way, next time, it's like the more we practice this, the easier it gets. Like now, when we have a conflict, it's easier and it's quicker for us to go into the understanding side because we've already done this so many times. So it really is like the more you practice it, the better you get at this. And I think that just being aware of what does this person need when they're in conflict, when they're feeling triggered, do they need that space or do they prefer to talk about it right away? Because everyone has, it's like their love languages, like everyone has different love languages. So by you knowing what's each other's conflict resolution style, you can respect that and you can work together to make sure that each of you has what you need to be regulated when those situations come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very important. And something that just came up to right now as you were talking, when I am the one that gets triggered, when I'm in the bedroom, if I need space, I always ask myself, why did I get triggered? What was the thing that got me triggered? Why did I yell? And was Eva actually trying to trigger me? And then when I'm the one that is triggering, I ask myself, what did I say that triggered her? And how could I have said it in a different way to not trigger her so that next time it can be better? So I think it's that mentality of growth. I think that that's what it is. Asking yourself the questions, the important questions, right? In understanding, was my ego involved? And let me add this here: ego is not a bad thing. It definitely is an every single part that you have as a human, every single emotion that you experience has a purpose. Even violence has a purpose to defend yourself, right? If you needed to defend yourself against a tiger, you would get the most violent that you can get, and you get an adrenaline rush. So every single part of you has a reason to be with you, and ego is exactly the same. However, our ego tends to want to get involved in everything because in our societies, they have taught us to develop a big ego and to rely on our ego. So, what part of the ego is getting involved in during this argument, and what part of you is the heart? And I think that's again going back to self, having your self reflections, right? Understanding yourself. I think everything, business, money, relationships boils down to who you are. And if you can understand with about yourself when it's coming from the ego versus the heart, you can also create that separation. Because there's been plenty of times, and I can speak to this, where my ego in my mind tells me this is not working. You should break up with Eva right now. She's so mad and I'm mad that I should just pick up my stuff. I should teach her. I should show her how she would have a worse life without me. That's literally my ego in my mind. But then I slow down and I listen to my heart, and my heart tells me, I love Eva. I don't want to leave her. I want a family with her. I want to grow old with her. We're going to stay with Eva. And the funny part is that these two conversations are going on at the same time. And maybe if you talk to a professional, they're going to tell you, oh, you have multiple personality
Personality.
disorders. And that's why it's important to understand yourself before you go to a
Mhm.
professional. Because sometimes they don't understand you. I'm not talking crap about them. I'm saying that sometimes they don't understand you. You have to understand you before you go to a professional.
Mhm.
This is not multiple personality disorder. At least with me, I can speak for myself. There's a conversation going on from my ego in my mind, and there's a conversation going on with my heart. And it's not like my heart can speak, but I feel it from my heart. I feel that it's coming from my heart. So to some people, this might sound like juju, but slow down, listen to yourself, and you'll see that you have different conversations at the same time.
Mhm.
And if I listen to my ego and my mind, Eva and I would have broken up so long ago. And I don't know, you can speak to how you feel and how you handle, have you had those thoughts in the past? But with me, it happens often when we have a big argument.
Mhm.
With my mind tells me something, but then my heart tells me something else. And it's so amazing to be able to slow down and look at it from a different perspective. There was a book I read, and I forgot the name, the title of it, to be honest. But this guy called this the meta awareness, where you can pull out from what's going on and you can listen to multiple parts of you and not have to get involved in it, and then have a choice of what part of you you want to listen to instead of just acting to the one that appears first. You can almost see it on a POV how everything's going on. So what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where I think when we've had like our biggest arguments, I have had like voices in my head saying like, "Oh, you should just give up. You should just break up. Like why keep going through this?" But I one thing that has helped me a lot with that is tuning into my intuition, because in the moment when I hear that voice, then I ask my intuition, and I've gotten really good strengthening my connection to my intuition. And when I ask my intuition like, should I continue with Eduardo, the answer has always been yes. And so then I'm like, okay, so I know that the bigger picture here is to continue. And this is just one moment that we're moving through this, and it feels rough. And one thing that really helped me to anchor this in even more is the gentleman I was speaking about earlier, Dr. Richard Schwartz, who came up with internal family systems. He talks about like how Eduardo's saying when you have that inner conflict, you have like multiple different voices in your head saying different things. Doesn't mean that you have multiple personalities. His model talks about that our mind is not just one mind, it's we have all these different parts within us. So you can have a part that wants you to continue doing something and then another part that wants you to stop, and both of them can exist at the same time. And one thing that Dr. Richard Schwartz talked about is how he's been married to his wife for however many years. And he, to this day, still has a part that will say, like, oh, maybe you guys should get a divorce. And I love that he shared that, because I think there's a lot when it comes to relationships that people don't share about, because it's like airing your dirty laundry out.
Hmm.
And so everyone wants to show you like how picture perfect their family is, and how they're always like get along and don't have, issues. But the reality is that I believe every single human, like put two humans in a room together, they're bound to get annoyed, frustrated, triggered with each other at some point. The honeymoon phase can only last so long, and like it's just in our nature for that kind of stuff to happen, but that doesn't have to define your relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that hearing from other people who've been in relationships for longer than us, because we've been in this relationship for like 5 to 6 years, hearing people who've been together for like 30 plus years, that they still move through similar things. Or, I have like a friend who's been married to her husband for like 20 plus years, and she's was telling me how she also has had those conversations and those moments with her husband. And I think hearing that from other couples shows us that it's like a normal part of moving through a relationship. It's a normal part of living with someone. You're going to get
Yeah.
annoyed, you're going to disagree on stuff, but are you going to let that define your relationship, or are you going to focus on the bigger parts
Yeah.
that matter more?
And I think to add to that, and this is, we're pivoting right now. This is, I didn't want this podcast to be about what I'm about to say, but I just wanted to add a space to talk about individual growth that I've had through this process, right? It is just going to be a few minutes, but I have applied this even to career, right? And money. I was born dirt poor. Like my family, sometimes we didn't have enough to eat. And even here in the U.S., I learned the language, and I don't have a college degree. And the job that I have right now, I get paid more than the average professional gets paid. I get paid above average, and all of my peers and what I do have bachelors and above. Some of them have master's degrees. And I remember the first time I applied to that job, I said to myself, you have an accent, you're not from here. Most of the people in this company are white and they all have degrees. But part of me still went for it and still did it. And I got the job and here I am. And it's the same thing with our podcast, with our YouTube, with everything that we're trying to do. I still hear a voice telling me, but you're not supposed to be doing this. But I still do it. So pivoting back to the relationship stuff, it's the same thing. There's going to be parts of you that don't want to continue. There's going to be parts of you that tell you to stop. There's going to be parts of you that they're going to tell you or make you second guess yourself on decisions in life. And that's pretty much life. There's always multiple conversations going on inside of you, and you decide who you listen to. There's multiple conversations. You listen to whoever you want to, and then you pick that choice and you run with it. And then you just keep moving forward.
Yeah, this makes me think about getting comfortable with feeling discomfort in life, because that's inevitable. And the more comfortable you can be in those moments and move through those, that's how you actually build resilience. And it definitely shows up in relationship, because in order to have open, honest communication with each other, we have to have conversations that are uncomfortable. We have to be willing to admit, hey, this is how I'm really feeling about this. Hey, can we talk about this? In order for that growth to happen, we have to be willing to address things instead of just letting them linger or brushing things under the rug. Because when you brush things under the rug, when you're afraid to address things, that's how resentment builds. And that's how then in a few years down the line or 10 years down the line, it's you're going to blow up at your partner because all that stuff has been building and building and building, and you were never truthful and shared it with your partner, and then you're going to explode at some point. Like, that's
Yeah.
inevitable. That
Yeah.
always happens.
So what I want to leave you with is, when you have a conflict with your partner, and if you want to create that conscious partnership, a few of the things that you can do is to simply slow down and ask yourself, why did I trigger my partner? Or if you're on the other side, why did I get triggered? And then the last thing would be to ask yourself, who are you choosing to listen to within yourself? Because that's going to be more than just relationships. That's going to be for your life. Am I choosing to listen to my heart? Am I choosing to listen to my brain? And sometimes it's fine to listen to one or the other. But ask yourself, who am I listening to? And if what I'm doing is what I actually want to do with my life. And the last thing that I want to say to you is, with everything going on in the world, not just with relationship, with the economy, politics, and everything that's going on in the world, I just want you to understand that even in conflict, and this is not just the conflict of a relationship, conflict as a whole, even in conflict, you can stay rooted in love, and you can still pick love over everything. And sometimes it's hard to do because what you're seeing in front of you is conflict, but you can still choose to come from love.
Can you give our audience an example of how to do that? Because I feel like that's something I hear a lot with people. And I feel like for us, it's very clear, like, how to do that. But I feel like if someone were listening and then they were like, well, how do I do that when there's like all this chaos and stuff
I'll give you an
happening?
example career wise on conflicts that I've experienced at work. There is a specific individual in my company that doesn't like me and makes it very clear, and that has even gotten on the way of my ascension and raises. And he's gone after me, even though he doesn't go after other people for the same reason. So it's a little discriminatory. But anytime I come in, before I walk in through the door, I tell myself, how can I approach this with love? So before I step through those doors, I like to think at I like to see that individual in a new light every day. Whatever he did yesterday is it's not what's going on today. Today is a new light, and today he may be happy, and maybe he experienced something last night that's super happy, and he's gonna treat me well. So thinking about what's going on in the moment rather than in the past, looking at this individual with the eyes of empathy. Sometimes when I look at him, when I'm feeling pissed at him, I think about how his life was when he was a kid. For him to go after me for no reason, that must have been tough for him to be a child that probably was abused emotionally, possibly even physically, in order for him to be taking that anger out on me. And then lastly, I just try to forgive that individual every day. Every day I try to forgive him and end my day with a highlight of what went well with me and with the people that actually care for me and with you, and decide to stay focused on love for the world and the things that went well, but also sending him love and also forgiving him for what he did every day, looking at him with fresh new eyes, even if he was a booty hole and a day prior to that. I try my best to do that. So I think that's a good example, at least for me.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. You have the power to create your experience and come up with the meaning of what is going on in your life. So, if you want to focus on all the ways that it's not working, you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to amplify that. If you want to see the beauty in life and have moments where you're enjoying life and you can stop and smell the roses, you'll be able to do that because that choice and intention is the first step. Having the awareness that that's what you want and that you want to have a different experience. And then your inner world and your inner reality is all up to you. So when you do healing work, when you go see your therapist, do different sessions, you do all that inner work, that is going to reflect, that has helped me to create inner peace within myself, and being able to feel that for yourself is priceless. And it shows you that you could do that regardless of what's going on, because even when everything is happening outside of you, when you are able to allow yourself to feel differently and to be rooted in your own peace and love, then you're able to take your power back instead of giving your power to what's going on in the world, what's going on in the economy, how someone else is treating you. When you recognize that a lot of times the way people treat you also is not personal, that was something really hard for me to learn. But when you can come back to yourself and recognize that your life is your responsibility and that's all you have control over, and you take that responsibility and you do something intentional with it, you can really transform your life.
So, with that being said, thank you for joining us and for staying till the end. And remember, even in conflict, you can stay rooted in love. Thank you for joining Juntos with Eduardo and
Eva. And don't forget to push subscribe, push the little bell notification for our future episodes. Comment on this one as well. We'd love to hear from you. And check out the link below to submit your questions so that we can answer whatever questions are in your heart and support you directly. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll tune in the next one.